Hey, what's up, everybody? Pretty cold out tonight. Here we are reporting live on Madison Avenue. Dock 7, Lori, Barris, what's going on? Armando. Hey, Armando, good to see you as always. Connie Ruiz. Let's actually cross the street this way, just so we can see some of the holiday decorations. Andy's here. Pops. Lance. Hope everybody had a pretty good Tuesday. Alan says chilly tonight. Yeah, it's freezing. Well, it's not freezing. It feels like it's freezing because we've essentially been having like 65, 70 degree weather, and now it's in the 40s and it's quite windy, so pretty cold. I see Stein is here. Steve B, what's going on? Good to see you, Steve. Another, kind of, well, all but temporarily record-breaking day in the market. I think things are getting a little bit overheated here, but we'll talk about it tonight. Dollar bill. Nicholas from Brazil, what's going on? Wow, solo flyer. Says you're headed to Key West in a week. You need that heat. I may be there when you're there. Not in Key West, I may be in Miami. And I'm going to Miami the day after Thanksgiving as well. Jill from Florida, what's up, Jill? Thanks for joining. David's, it's great to see you. Cheers, Nick Rocks. Says it's going to be better next Monday. Hawaii, what's going on? Reggie 44 says Doge. Yeah, we're going to talk about that tonight for sure. Vincent is here. Says good evening, Tom. Wildcat, Stan, Lori C. What's going on, everybody? Pretty amazing stuff, right? It almost kind of makes me think that we're living in a simulation. Who would have ever thought that we would have an official government agency with the acronym of Doge? Insane. I'm sure everyone saw the tweet or the post that was put out by President-elect Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy, plus Elon Musk, will be leading up the Department of Government Efficiency. Insane. So many people thought it was a meme. Many people thought it was a joke, but they're actually going to name the government agency Doge. Absolutely hilarious. It is total cartoon land, and I'm all for it. I think it's going to be a lot of lighthearted fun, but also Elon Musk is going to get down to business with Vivek and, probably go scorched earth and cull out a lot of the excess fat in the government. Now, one of my predictions is the following. And we'll talk about this tonight. It's probably going to be a shorter than normal live stream just because it's so windy and it's so cold, and I did not dress appropriately for the occasion. But, what I said before, assuming that Elon and Vivek and the Trump administration really, goes hammer time on essentially firing a lot of people and cutting a lot of the government excess, you're going to see a little bit of short-term pain there. But over the long term, right, over the long haul, it's going to be overwhelmingly positive, okay? But don't be surprised, right, that, next year, let's say Q1 into Q2, if they really start to get aggressive in making these cuts, you may see a little bit of a turbulence in the economy, which will be attacked, right? But like I said, short-term pain, long-term gain. It's almost as if, what you're seeing with the X platform, right? Now, I'm not sure if you guys are following, but in many countries, including Italy right now, the number one news application in Italy is X. So X is growing in popularity, not only in the United States, but across the globe. And they've been able to do it with quite literally a fraction of the employees that they once had. So talk about, increasing operational efficiencies, over the long term, increasing shareholder value. I think, right, that this Doge is going to increase, and I'm making air quotes here, is going to increase shareholder value over the long term for the United States, right? Obviously, I use air quotes. What I mean is it's going to increase the value of our government output, but not only increase the efficiency of the output, but reduce costs, right? I think we're going to be in an age of hyper efficiency here. But it'll come at the cost of short-term pain. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. So I see Professor Dario is here. Hopefully you're doing well. And hopefully it's a little bit warmer where you are in your neck of the woods. We're standing outside of the Apple Store and the GM building. Doc 7 says Doge will create a new bureaucracy and waste more tax dollars. Maybe. That's an interesting take. Wise Al says, I was just talking about Doge yesterday. This is amazing news. Alan says that's exactly why I know Elon is going to be great for America. What else we got? Stephen Bates. Cheers. David says, how about that Cava? They reported earnings, right? I was just so busy, I didn't get a chance to see how they reported. But I've been covering the stock. I'm assuming they beat earnings expectations. Anybody care to fill us in on how Cava reported? I think they reported today or yesterday. I just didn't have time to check up on it. But if you remember reading our newsletter, this was probably about 8 months ago now, I announced that I started initiating coverage on the stock, and the stock is almost up 90% since we've been initiating coverage. Now, it is quite frothy, the valuation, but it's interesting because and I always refer back to this book, In All Transparency. My friend is the author of the book, so shameless plug. If you go back and study the historical movements of TMLs, or true market leaders, valuations get extremely stretched, and companies go through something called a PE expansion or multiple expansion, right as they're about to make their biggest move, right? So it's actually a bullish signal when you have these kind of pie-in-the-sky valuations right before a stock is about to make a big move. Reggie44 says it's up over 16% after hours. I'll take that. Congrats to all Cava shareholders. Cheers. Now, I believe at one point today, real quick, I just want to point this out. We are now standing outside of the beautiful Plaza Hotel. You can see some of the holiday decorations put up already. You can see the bellman trying to call a cab here. David Huck says 39% increase in revenue. That's fantastic. What about same-store sales growth? Well, I'm probably going to, when I get back to the office, I'm going to do a total post-analysis of the earnings. But it's a very similar growth trajectory than Chipotle in the very early innings, right? And if you think about quick service restaurants, if you think about fast casual restaurants, the reason why they've been so successful I should say the model book companies like the Chipotles of the world, the Wingstops of the world, and the like, right? The ones that have performed the best over long periods of time. There's a few things in common, which I like to call the magic elixir, okay, for quick service restaurants and fast casual companies. Number one is scalability, right? Can you have, I would say, rational scalability opening up new stores that perform, right? Because anybody could open up stores, but can you open up stores that perform? And if you look at the really early innings of Chipotle, they had an amazing scalability plan in specific submarkets in the United States, right? Focusing around major metropolitan areas. That is it's essentially like Cava's copying and pasting Chipotle's growth strategy in terms of scalability. Number two, and I actually learned this from reading Howard Schultz's original book, right? Which, ironically enough, they kind of deviated away from the original plan now that Howard Schultz is kind of not at Starbucks anymore. The current CEO of Starbucks is the former CEO of Chipotle, and I think he's going to completely turn around that company. Anyway, I digress. The number two sort of entity in the equation is a very simplified menu, right? If you have this outlandish, confusing menu with a million different things, it gets customers very confused, and it's very difficult for you to organize a supply chain and control your costs. Right, with Chipotle, it's rice, beans, tortillas, and hard shell tortillas. Right, it's very easy for Chipotle to control a supply chain and buy very in bulk for competitive pricing. Cava has a very simple menu as well. Right, there's not a 50 million different choices you could get there. Right, so the scalability, the simplification of the menu, and the last thing I would say is a very large overall total addressable market. If you think about a company like Chipotle, everybody eats Mexican food, right? What is the TAM of steak, rice, and beans, or chicken, rice, and beans? It's huge. Now, I would say Cava, more Mediterranean-style dish, maybe not as large of a total addressable market or a TAM as Chipotle, but it's pretty damn big, right? It's pretty damn big. So the scalability, being able to scale while maintaining healthy margins, while being able to, kind of skirt around I'm losing my choice of words here because the wind is just so cutting. You guys probably can't hear the wind because I have the wind mic on, but the wind is like brutal right now. But being able to scale while maintaining food safety. Because if you remember in the early days of Chipotle stock was down like 80%. It had about an 80% drawdown for Chipotle because it had that big E. coli scare. And then they turned around the company. All right, let me catch up on some of the comments. Barris says fast casual doesn't have the same reputation as fast food restaurants in terms of food quality and service. I think they have a better reputation. David says the founder of Panera is now working at Cava. I saw that. I saw that in equity research note. And I think Panera Bread is a very well-run establishment. I think it's a little bit overpriced, but it's very well run. Johnny says wind mic works great. It's clear as can be. Thank you, Johnny. Appreciate that. Matthew M. Well, that's interesting. Thank you for that reminder. I'm going to have to do a quick deep dive. But Cava, if you're talking about the technicals here, right? If you're talking about like technical analysis, this is what you would call a stage 1 IPO base breakout. So if you go to TradingView if you pull up your Bloomberg terminal, however you look at charts, right? Market Smith, whatever. If you go to a weekly time frame for Cava, you'll see how it had that initial rally right off the bat during its IPO. And then the stock retraced, I believe, almost 65%. And then it's been running up the right side of the base and breaking out into new all-time record highs. Here's the equation. And again, this has been proven through data. You could read the book, The Life Cycle Trade, by Kathy Donnelly and Eve Bobach. This was the largest study ever done on IPOs and IPO performance with all of the specific characteristics like the earnings growth, the revenue growth, the pre-tax, after-tax margin growth. And one of the main things that it shows when a stock is breaking out of its stage one base, you could just buy that into new all-time record highs. Oftentimes people think that, a stock broke out into new highs, I don't want to buy it, I'll buy it on the pullback. Most times when a stock breaks out of a stage one IPO base on 4 to 6 beat and raised earnings quarters, it'll just run. It'll just go and it'll run and it'll hold the 10-day moving average all the way up. Hey, Lena Sandoval, good to see you. This is the 57th Street Billionaires Row subway station. I see Jimmy B. What's going on? Rocket Mob. Cheers to you. I see Ben. Says, Tom, received your email. I'll respond this week. Thank you, Ben. I just want to run a few things by you, if you don't mind. I know you're a busy guy, but I just want to have a quick conversation and maybe talk about some ways we could work together. Now, okay, on a completely unrelated note, I got to tell you guys something, okay? This is 57th Street Billionaires Row. Some of the most expensive real estate in the entire planet sits right here, like within, I would say, less than a quarter of a mile. 432 Park Avenue, 157 Steinway Tower, Extel Central Park Tower, and 220 Central Park South. But here's the catch, and I can't understand it for the life of me. If you walk down these stairs, right where this garbage tornado just poofed out of the subway, if you walk down these stairs, okay, for whatever reason, one of the most dirty subway stations with the most, I should say, the highest congregation of homelessness, unfortunately, is right here at 57th Street Billionaires Row F train station. I don't know what it is, I don't know why it's like that, but it's such an interesting juxtaposition and contrast for the neighborhood. Because you could quite literally buy an apartment in Central Park Tower for $125 million. That deal actually just closed 4 months ago. You could buy a penthouse, full floor penthouse at Steinway Tower for $56 million. And quite literally right beneath you, in this 57th Street subway station, quite literally at night, maybe I'll take a standalone video of it, over 25, it's like a homeless encampment down there. I don't know what it is. I think the city needs to be doing a much better job providing shelter, particularly now that it's getting colder out. I don't get it. I do not get it. It's really, really crazy. Now, any other New Yorkers notice the same thing? Now, I'm not trying to take a shot. I'm not trying to be negative, but it's just a very, very glaring contrast. And I don't know what it is about 57th Street, but it's wild down there. Yeah, why says thanks for the heads up, Tom. That's scary. I don't know why. I think I've taken you guys down there before. I feel like I have. But anyway, totally unrelated, but I just thought I'd quickly bring it up. Let's just touch on one point real quick, everybody. Now today, intraday, okay, we didn't get a closing high, but today Bitcoin hit a new all-time record high of $90,000 intraday, right? I think we've since corrected some, I believe Bitcoin's trading at like 87,900 or so, give or take. But intraday, I got an alert on my computer that Bitcoin hit 90,000, right? So these are explosive moves here. Pretty explosive moves. And I'm sure everybody who's been watching this broadcast has been feeling pretty well. The dope dealer said you'd be surprised how many millionaires take the train. I mean, everybody takes the train in the city. Adults says yes, but they don't want their families around. I don't know what that means. Ben says Bitcoin will be going above 100,000 easily. Well, the measured move on the breakout from this cup with handles right around 105,000. And if you look at the Bitcoin mining difficulty and how much it costs to actually mine a full Bitcoin, it should already be at 100,000. Prasad says yell. Yeah, there was a few big Wall Street CEOs that made some posts on the X platform this week. If you go to Bill Ackman's X page, he put out a post explaining one of his friends was asking one of his other good friends for a letter of recommendation to go to Yale, and he wouldn't write the letter of recommendation due to all of the craziness that is going on at these Ivy League schools. So I was reading the post, and something so crazy stood out. And I'm going to paraphrase this, but there was just a recent survey at Harvard Business School, and it says 50% of the students and 50% of the professors at Harvard Business School now refuse to have and purposely avoid having difficult or controversial conversations. Now, why is that important to talk about and note? Well, newsflash, if anybody's ever been in the business world, business is all about having difficult and very, very uncomfortable conversations. I'm sure if anybody's ever been in a sales position or have worked in banking, where the money is where the difficult conversations are, right? Sometimes you have to have a difficult conversation with the customer, right? You know, when I was selling software and we had a huge outage, my customers were fuming mad. You know, they were paying us $100,000 a month for XYZ software. You have an outage, they're calling you, screaming at you, saying they want to cancel, saying that you're, the worst person in the world, that you're a fraud. You got to be able to pick up the phone, take the heat, battle through the fire, have those tough conversations, and calm down your customers and keep them happy. So if you're sending your kids to Harvard Business School, spending $250,000 or how much ever it is, I don't know, I'm not that smart. I was never smart enough to get into these schools. But if you're paying, $250,000 for your son or daughter to get an MBA, and the professors are purposely avoiding and refusing to teach business school students how to have tough conversations, well, how are they going to do business? They're going to crumple like a folding chair. Doesn't make any sense. When you get into the business world, okay, every single opportunity for you to make money or do a big deal comes right after a very difficult and very, very uncomfortable conversation. You're going up against a competitor. You have to explain your value proposition. Maybe the customer's trying to bid you down. You have to hold your ground, show your value. Those are uncomfortable. Nobody wants to have those conversations. So for a business school to quite literally, the professors at the business school say, you know what? We're going to totally steer clear of adversity. So why are you going to business school? Doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I'll kind of stay out of that conversation. I'm not that smart. I can never get into any of these schools, so I'll leave it to the Ivy League educated to figure out. So you have 157 here, you have Steinway Tower to the left, but this is one of my favorite buildings in all of New York City. This is Alwyn Court. Beautiful piece of architecture here. Hey, what's up, Joe Driver? Says, hey, Tom, thanks for the stream tonight. It's definitely not Miami weather in New York City tonight. Yeah, it's pretty cold. Pretty cold. I think it's officially about time to break out the winter jacket. It's starting to finally feel like the holidays are approaching. Hey, John says, I think the Robinhood CEO is on air today talking about how inexpensive it is to host crypto on their standard... oops, I lost your comment. On their platform versus standard listed stocks and options. Well, that kind of makes sense, right? Because there's a lot less involved. Damn, Dylan says it was 90 degrees in Miami today. It's awesome. Love that. Super jealous about that. Let's just check out 220 Central Park West, or excuse me, 220 Central Park South. Kevin says, Tom, I'm getting up there in years, and every very, very successful businessman I've ever interacted with was a bit of an a-hole, not a total. But definitely leaning towards it. Have a great night. Yeah, I mean, look, I think at some point, you know, if you think about all of the most successful businessmen and businesswomen in the world, I mean, think about Steve Jobs. One of the biggest misconceptions about Steve Jobs was that he was this lovey-dovey, you know, kumbaya guy. Steve Jobs was a freaking killer. The guy was an absolute savage beast, okay? If you met anybody who worked with Steve Jobs, if you listen to any podcasts from people who've done deals with Steve Jobs, he was an absolute freaking killer. Same thing with Bill Gates. I mean, Bill Gates is beloved right now, right, with the Gates Foundation. You know, they parade him around on the World Health Organization. But when he was just starting Microsoft, that guy was a savage, right? When he was just kind of starting the company. Such a hard ass. You could also point to the likes of Elon Musk, right? We just had a 2-hour conversation last night how much of a polarizing and controversial figure Musk is, right? Whether you like him or not, the guy's got a massive ego, okay? He's a hard ass. So I think I would tend to agree. You kind of have to have a little bit of grit and backbone. You know, in the real estate world, I think of like Sam Zell, like a Sam Zell. Unfortunately, he passed away, but I think you're right. Now, another one is Mark Benioff. Now, Mark Benioff seems like a sweetheart, but the guy, you know, and he's a very charitable guy. I tend to, I mean, one of my favorite tech CEOs of all time is Mark Benioff, but the guy is an absolute operator, like a total, you know, domination no matter what. That's how those guys and girls are. Same thing. Oh, what's another good example? Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA. If you ever listened to an interview with Jensen, he was like, it's supposed to be hard, right? I think one of the interviews, the interviewer was asking, you know, there's a rumor going around that it's extremely, extremely difficult to work for you. And he's like, yeah, that's a correct rumor. It should be difficult, right? It should be hard. And that's why, you know, his company is worth, you know, multi-trillion dollar company. One of the most important companies in the world. You don't get there by, being a pushover. It's a really good point. Yeah, Barris, Adam Neumann was also ruthless when he founded WeWork. I couldn't agree more. And I've actually met with Adam Neumann in person at the old Sprint office in Manhattan, 1166 Avenue of the Americas. Right, this guy, he's super, super tall, and he rolled into the office with like 8 henchmen. They were all dressed in like skinny jeans that were ripped. They had beanies on. But the guy, I mean, if you think about his business career, right, took billions and billions of dollars from Moss's son, from SoftBank, and the guy doesn't quit. Even though WeWork turned out to be a massive, well, I don't want to say massive failure, because it wasn't, but it went bankrupt. People lost fortunes in WeWork. The guy turns right around and does the same thing again, raises a bunch of money with Flow. So it just goes to show you like the perseverance it takes, right? It's okay if you fail. It's okay if you blow up a company and take it from, $80 billion or whatever it was and take it to zero, quite literally. You can get back up. You can raise money in the market. Again, people will give you the money and you could start a whole other company, right? I mean, think about the psychological toll that must have taken on most people. But Adam Neumann, after raising a bunch of money, essentially taking Moss's son for everything that, the SoftBank Vision Fund was worth, taking it to zero, and then getting back up after still retaining his billions, raising more money from Andreessen Horowitz, I think it's A16Z, and launching another company that's very similar called Flow. The guy is, I mean, talk about perseverance. That's another really good point. Anyway, here we are at Billionaires Row, Columbus Circle, looking at 220 Central Park South and Central Park Tower. Hey, New England Crypto, what's going on? Madison 32. Hang with Mark Mom is joining us. Good to see you. Hopefully you're doing well. Ali RB is here. Teresa Diaz, TD, what's going on? Yeah, Manuel says Rockefeller and Vanderbilt were ruthless, for sure. Absolutely. I mean, the good news about America, right, and it's so true, right, it may sound kind of corny to say, but just as long as you don't give up, right, just as long as you don't throw in the towel in the United States, you're going to make your break at some point, right? I'm not saying you're going to become a billionaire, but you're going to be able to make a nice living and live a very good life. Just don't quit. You could fail, you could take companies and bankrupt 12, 13 companies, but if you just continue to get back up, keep moving the ball down the field, just don't quit. Just ingrain it into your mind that you're not going to quit. Keep going forever. Just push, push, push. And the law of probabilities, you're going to stumble into a monster opportunity and you're going to do really, really good, right? That it just happens. It just happens. If you never quit and you keep pressing, life is going to throw you some opportunities. It's just the truth. You also increase your likelihood of good luck, right? Because there is a large component of success that has to deal with luck. It's just the truth. But you can increase your probability of getting lucky, right? If you increase your at-bats. So if you wake up every day and you increase the amount of your activity, so you're always active in whatever you're doing, chances are you're going to meet somebody, you're going to be at the right place at the right time, and it only takes one, right? That's the beauty of America. It only takes one. You only have to get rich once in America, right? Let's go over by 15 Central Park West. David says Napster led the way to streaming platforms. We have today renting music. that brings me... Did anybody see Ross is going to be released from prison? He was the founder of the Silk Road. Anyone been following that? I believe he served maybe over 12 years in prison. And he actually has a life sentence. So he's supposed to spend the rest of his life in prison. And former President Trump, currently President-elect Trump, I believe has promised that he's going to give a full pardon to Ross. That would be amazing. I don't even know why that guy's in jail. Now, maybe 5 years? Okay, fine. But for life? Come on. That's ridiculous. It's time to get him out of prison. I don't know why that comment made me think of that, but he is set. I mean, assuming Trump keeps his word, right? He should be out. Brian says he'll be out in January. How do we know that for sure, though? I do not believe we know that for sure right now. Maybe we do. Hey, Con Cars, what's up? Chooch Tech, cheers. Hey, what's up, Peter? Says, I think luck has more to do with timing than anything. Yeah, absolutely. Right place at the right time. I would say, I mean, I'm not like a super massive success, but all of the success, the micro successes I've had in my life could be chalked up to luck. But it's just about getting out there, being at the right place at the right time, and the more opportunities you give yourself, right, the higher probability you'll be at the right place at the right time. Stumble into an industry, stumble into a deal that turns into a monster deal. It's just about persistence. But luck does have a lot to do with success, right? And a lot of people don't like to admit that, but it's true. I mean, think about it this way. What are the odds of being born in the United States of America? What were the odds that I would be born in the United States, that I would be born not into poverty, lower middle class family, and that I would be born in and around one of the most, prosperous, economic powerhouses in the entire world, which is New York City. That is not anything that I've done myself. That is just all luck of the draw, right? Being born in America, number one. Being born in New York, number two. Like that, I mean, you couldn't have hit the lottery more. I mean, that's just like, you can't hit the lottery more than that. I mean, it's just insane. So, you got to make the most of it. We've hit the lottery. We're born in America. So you got to make the most of it, because there's billions of people, literally, all over the world that want to be in our position. There's billions of people that would rather have been born in the United States than some war-torn country where they have no opportunities, right? So put that into perspective. Anytime that you're feeling like you're having a bad day. There's people currently on this earth that are quite literally born into slavery. Think about that for a moment in the year 2024. And that's not being, over-exaggeration. That's the truth. There are some people in this world today that are born into slavery. That is insane. So if you're born in America, dude, you got to figure it out. I don't know what to tell you. You got to figure it out. All right, anyway, on a more cheery note, guys, what do you think of Lincoln Center? Look at how beautiful this is. Such an amazing, amazing place. Hey, Timothy, says timing is everything, and if you spend enough smart time in your pursuit. Hey, Sally, good to see you. I got your email last night, by the way. I don't know what was going on with the stream. So I apologize for that. I'm glad we made it up to Lincoln Center before they shut the fountain off. Hey, Steph UF, this is Tom. I was just recently in New York City this weekend. 3 days barely scratches the surface. I'll definitely be back. Oh, I agree. If you're only spending 3 days in New York, it's pretty much impossible to see everything. I mean, there's just so much that the city has to offer. Well, hopefully you had a good time. And what did you think about the hotel recommendation? It's a pretty good spot, right? It's pretty affordable. It's in a good location. It's safe. It's clean, it's new. That's what I like about it. Hey, Ben says, I was born to a single middle-class mom who by the time I was a teenager could afford to buy her own home. Ben, good to see you. This is overlooking Fordham University. But it's getting cold, so let's head back into Midtown. It's too windy up here. Now, we briefly touched on some breaking news here out of the Trump administration. They're actually going to move forward with the Department of Government Efficiency, or Doge, which is a pretty hilarious acronym. And Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk will be leading up that department. So imagine, just for a second, right? I mean, let's just talk about the track record of Elon Musk and all his companies. From Neuralink to Tesla, to SpaceX, to the Boring Company. All of these businesses are multi-billion-dollar businesses. Tesla, trillion-dollar company. He's proven himself to be able to be the ultimate jack of all trades and the ultimate multitasker. Oh, Twitter too, X. I totally forgot about that, the X platform. So just imagine if Elon and Vivek could increase operational efficiencies of the United States government just by 15%. Can you imagine that? Now, I personally have severe PTSD dealing with any type of government entity in the United States because it's just so piss poor. And I won't speak for anybody else because maybe you've had good experiences. But every time I interact with a government entity, it's just so mind-numbing that I'd rather just not interact, right? From the IRS, from state and local government, but particularly at the federal level. You walk into the DMV, it's just like there's no urgency to help. It's, I don't want to talk too negatively, but I mean, imagine if we get our government programs rocking on all cylinders with very, very efficient and competent people. I mean, guys, this is going to be some unbelievable stuff. But I think it will come at a temporary cost of short-term pain. Because when you start coming in and firing everybody, right, just let's be honest, morale really tanks. People do not work well when they are in fear of losing their jobs, right? It just doesn't. So I think you're going to have an acceleration, all but short term, of incompetence within the hierarchy of these institutions. But over the long term, you're going to have unbelievable streamlined efficiencies. So you may see a little bit of rockiness at first, and that actually may spill over into the markets. My fear is the following, right? If we kind of bring it back to the economy and the market. My fear is that they go too big, too soon. Similar to what Elon Musk did with X. When he bought Twitter, he pretty much fired everybody, right? That's very risky to do in the government because the government is a huge, huge, huge payroll provider for millions of Americans. So if you start cutting so many jobs too soon while not giving these government workers an appropriate plan, either like some sort of a severance, some sort of a program to help them assimilate back into the private sector, help them get jobs in the private sector, that could be a substantial hit to the economy, short term. So hopefully, right, and I think that they probably will, there needs to be some sort of ethical, and I'll use that term, I think that's an appropriate term, there needs to be some sort of ethical, honest off-ramp, right? This isn't corporate America. This is the government. You can't do scorched earth, right? And I know a lot of people are kind of cheering for that, chanting for that. I don't think that's the appropriate take. I think we could easily slash like 30% plus of headcount across the board, but doing that without first, helping these individuals increase their skills, find new jobs, or maybe we even need to adopt some sort of temporary, I'm not going to say universal basic income, but just some sort of temporary assistance if we're going to really, really go scorched earth here and fire a bunch of people. Because the goal is not to fire a bunch of people for the sake of firing a bunch of people and making the government more efficient. These are Americans. So we want to make sure that they're not going to be living in poverty. They're not going to be homeless, right? We want to be able to invest in them getting the necessary skills so they can go find good paying jobs in the private sector. So that's kind of the way I think about it. I'd be very interested to know what you all think about it. Denise has spent 8 hours on hold when I needed to contact social services for healthcare assistance. It was definitely a nightmare. RB says, understand any laid off will receive 2 years severance pay. That's more than fair, I think. Chloe says, teach them to be involved in the market, generally speaking. I mean, with all the money we waste, right? I mean, hear me out on this one. Think about, honestly for a second, think about all the money we just blow on nonsense. Like so much government spending waste. Just take all the money we waste and give these government employees that are about to be laid off a free education. I would totally agree to have my taxpayer dollars go to that, right? But make sure that they can't get a degree in basket weaving or something. STEM field. We talk about this global race. Everyone says we're going to lose this global race with China because they focus on STEM fields and things like that. Well, why don't we prioritize our government employees and get them a great education? Give them a choice of 5 different skills that they want to learn. Pick a skill and we'll train you and we'll retool you for a new economy. I think that's appropriate. If we're really going to make these drastic changes, I think that would be mutually beneficial to all. Hey, Cynthia, what's going on? Trade Brigade says, did you hear Musk's proposal on Rogan's podcast about how to assimilate folks? Very similar, need a long ramp. Folks will be more productive and net more GDP for the economy in private versus government. I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole podcast, but it's very refreshing that you tell me that there's, some sort of a plan, which makes sense because, Elon Musk is a smart guy, so he's probably, gone through every single scenario that, I've just gone through in my head. But, I agree. My fear is, and we've kind of talked about this before, you're going to have a temporary slowdown in the economy at first if we really do this, right? And there's going to be a lot of finger pointing. There's going to be a lot of "I told you so," "this is the worst thing ever." And there's not a lot of people that are going to get behind this. But if you can just stick with it, stick it through for a year, the United States is going to come out on the other side of this like absolutely ready to freaking rock. And I really do believe that. So short-term pain, unfortunately, no politician will ever get elected if they come out and they're very frank with the American people. Say, look, what we need to do is going to cause some short-term turbulence in the economy. It's going to cause an uptick in unemployment, which it will. But if we do this and we stick it out and we band together, we're going to come out on the other side of this much better off. Much better off. The problem over the last decade is that Republicans and Democrats just want to point at the scoreboard, right? And say, look how high the stock market was under me. Look at how low the unemployment rate was under me. When in reality, they know that they're just both kicking the can down the road, right? We know that the central banks are pulling the strings. We understand that. But we're kind of stealing from our children's future, so to speak. So perhaps this will be the first administration that kind of bites the bullet, takes that short-term hit for the long-term overall well-being of the country. And I think if we do that, it's going to be a golden age in the U.S. Peters is a sizable part of gross domestic product is government, so less government will cause a short-term slowdown. Inevitably, we will be better off in the long run. Totally, I absolutely agree with that. I absolutely agree with that 100%. Hey, Sabrina Fair, what's going on? Good to see you. Black Ribbon is here. Now, Trade Brigade, a few of the chatters were talking about the big move in Cava after hours. I actually didn't get a chance to even see how they reported earnings. Apparently, it was a pretty big earnings beat. The stock is up, 12% after hours. That thing has been a monster breaking out of that stage 1 IPO base. Now, another monster that I'm watching is Coinbase, as well as Robinhood. I think there's some pretty heavy similarities between Coinbase, Robinhood, and what Charles Schwab used to be way back in the day when Schwab just went public. Schwab was really the discount broker dealer on the street that disrupted the industry. I think Coinbase is going to be the Schwab of the crypto world, and Robinhood is going to be the new Schwab for the millennials and the Gen Z. Jay says China is kicking our ass. I actually don't agree with that. China is in such a horrid economic position that the PBOC has had to come out here and pretty much backstop the entire economy. If you look at what the PBOC is doing right now, it's essentially all-out panic mode. Unbelievable, unprecedented amounts of stimulus to save the economy, and more specifically, to save the housing market and the Chinese real estate market. It's like China's 2008. It's going on right now. Hang with Mark Mom says I'm with Coinbase. It's what my son prefers. I believe Binance is banned in the state of New York. Can anyone confirm that? Because every time I try to log into Binance in New York, you're not allowed. It blocks you. Now, speaking of a bull thesis for crypto, the market is pricing in a very, very pro-Bitcoin and pro-crypto government. Gary Gensler is going to get out of there. You're going to have the most pro-Bitcoin Congress ever. Cosmos says, do I hold BNB? I don't. I only hold Bitcoin. You can consider me a Bitcoin maximalist, but I will say this. You will have an altcoin rally, and pretty much all of these alternative coins, including Ethereum, will make new all-time record highs this cycle. It's just, I'm not an altcoin person. Back when I was in college, everybody was a degenerate, or a degen, what they call them in the crypto space. I would take part in all of these initial coin offerings, like ICOs when I was in college. All of these things have gone out of business, or they turned out to be frauds. So when I made my first big kind of win in the space, I'm like, you know what? I'm not dabbling in any of this nonsense. I'm just going to start stacking Bitcoin. And from my experience, that's many of the participants, I should say, life cycle in the market. Let's look at this guy jackhammering over here. I give New York City construction workers so much credit. Just construction workers in general. If it's this loud all the way across the street, can you imagine how loud that jackhammer is pounding in that guy's ear? Now that's real work, right? Those construction workers, the people who actually do real manual labor, that's real work. What I do is not real work, okay? And I'll be the first one to admit that. The construction workers, the heavy equipment operators, the plumbers, the people who actually build things like the infrastructure, those are the workers, man. I mean, I give my two hats off to those guys. Like, those people build America. And the farmers, I agree. All right, let's cross on the other side of the street. Or maybe we'll stay on this side of the street. Yeah, Hawaii is true dat. I always, tell this story. When I worked in my old office on 6th Avenue, they were building a new building that was going up right next to us. And it was the most brutally cold day. It was windy, it was snowing, it was just absolutely horrible in New York. And I remember I was like so pissed off, I must have lost a deal or something. And I was sitting in my cubicle, right, in my nice, warm office. The wind was whipping, the snow was blowing. And I look out the window and I see these guys quite literally hanging off the side of a building, okay? And I think they were what you call like the iron workers. And they're placing these massive steel I-beams in place. And they have these huge like drill things. And they're just like bom, 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 bom. Like hammering them into place when it's snowing and when the wind is whipping. And I told myself from that day, I'm like, I will never ever bitch about anything at a corporate desk job. Ever. Those guys are out in the whipping winds, hanging off the side of buildings. There's nothing to complain about. I'm sitting in an office, okay, with the beautiful 6th Avenue view, temperature controlled. I will never ever complain about anything ever again. And that's kind of like you could use that as motivation. It's like, dude, whatever adversity you got going through, you're not hanging off the side of a building. You're going to be okay. All right. And that's the truth. Those guys really freaking work hard. It's crazy. All right, let's make our way through this pedestrian. Ben says, Tom, have you ever been inside the Aman residences, New York City? Yeah, I have. It's funny that you mentioned that. At the very, very beginning of this summer, the big penthouse that I believe just sold to the owner of Aman, that Russian, I think he was like some sort of Russian oligarch. I believe Brown Harris Stevens had some sort of event there, like showcasing that, and our team was invited. And I stopped by for a quick few moments, and it was the most beautiful place I've ever seen in my life. They do have a bar that's on the roof that's open to the public. So you don't actually have to stay at the Aman New York to go up there. A lot of people think that you do. You don't. It's quite similar to the Park Hyatt, where if you want to go to the bar or you want to go to the restaurant, you could do that. You don't necessarily need to stay at the hotel. It's the same thing with the Aman New York. So it's this beautiful terrace that overlooks Central Park, but you're right on Fifth Avenue. So you're looking right at the Trump Tower. You can see a little bit of the Plaza Hotel, Sherry Netherland. It's quite nice over there. It's right here, actually. You can see it right here. It's the building with the kind of blue little top. Ben says, I want a unit there. I let the home office know today, unit 18A. Well, let me know. Give me a call. I know that we connected on email. I think my boss did a deal in the building. Now, I don't know if you're a big Mandarin Oriental person, but they're having some trouble moving those units. So they'll probably, have significant marks on those properties. But, yeah, I mean, if you need help, give me a call. I'm in the office all day. Adam Luke says, I'd rather work construction any day over retail. I couldn't handle dealing with the garbage out there. Yeah, I mean, retail workers also get abused by really terrible customers that don't have any respect. So I agree. I mean, we've all worked our crappy retail jobs before. I actually used to work the worst retail job on God's green earth. I worked in the middle of Times Square, in the belly of the beast, at a store called Express. And I would work the 9 p.m. to 3 a.m. shift. Now, granted, I never really had to deal with customers that much, because I would come in right as we're closing. I think we close at 11 p.m. But it was brutal, because think about the volume of people, the volume of tourists who walk in and out of the big Express flagship store in Times Square. They absolutely destroy the store. Okay, there's clothes everywhere, everything is out of order. And your job is to walk around the store and make sure everything is back to what it should be. It's like the floor plan. So you have to organize the clothes by size. It takes, oh my God, it's painstaking. Painstaking. Now, it doesn't sound bad, but it is. You're on your feet, you're looking at these little tiny SKU codes. The manager is having a little bit of a temper tantrum. They think they're like, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, but they're managing in an Express store, and they're hammering you, they're berating you. It's like, whew. But you know what? Everybody needs to do a retail crappy job and suffer through it, suck it up, and do it. It gives you a lot of appreciation. Peter says, how did I come across that job at Express? Well, I wanted to make money to invest. And I had a day job where I would work during the day. And I was taking some college courses online at the time as well. And in the off season, while I wasn't playing soccer, I would try to do 4 days where I would stack, I would literally sleep 3 hours. I would go work at a little rental car place on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. And then at night, I would go to this job at Express. And I thought I was making $1 million, but I think I was bringing in only $600 a week. Something like that. I mean, killing myself, working just crazy, taking 2 or 3 hour naps. I mean, this was a long, long time ago. This is when I was a teenager. Hey, what's up, Andre? Good to see you. All the way from Brazil. Cheers. Someone says, how did you only sleep 3 hours? So it's a pretty hilarious story. So I've told this a bunch of times, but we do have a lot of new viewers here. So I went to college on the west side of Manhattan at a local public college, John Jay College. And my brother's friends at the time that he graduated with all got an apartment together right at Columbus Circle. So I was invited over one night to like a little house party thing. I really didn't even want to go. I'm not a big partier, but I just wanted to see my brother. And I noticed they had a walk-in closet in the hallway. And it was a pretty nice walk-in closet too. You know, it was big enough just to roll out a little yoga mat. So I asked my brother's friend, I'm like, hey, could I live here? You know, because I was commuting all the way from Long Island, which was like a 2-hour train ride round trip. And I was like, why don't you move all of your, toilet paper, all the brooms and the dustpans and the mops, into the hallway and let me just live in your closet. And they agreed. I think I paid like $300. And I slept in a little closet right there at 59th Street, which allowed me to just work 24/7, 365. But you can't afford to do that when you're older, right? I mean, I would probably die of a heart attack if I did that now. But when you're 17 years old, you could do whatever you could do it, right? I mean, they would have crazy benders Friday night, Saturday night, but I would be out working and going to college. And if you do that for a few years, save all the money, invest all the money, again, this comes into getting lucky. Think about where the market was in 2013. If you invested all your money in the S&P 500 and bought a bunch of tech stocks, well, by the time 2017 rolled around, you were doing pretty well. But that's essentially how I was able just to like take naps throughout the day, because it was like 2 blocks away from my college. Now, another interesting story, the only reason why I stumbled into tech sales, working in tech from during one of the greatest tech booms in history, is I was washing, cars at the Enterprise Rent-A-Car on 83rd Street between Amsterdam and Columbus. And there would be all these, mid-20s guys and girls coming in, renting cars to, go on appointments, see clients. And I was just super curious because they looked like they made a lot of money. And I saw someone had like a Salesforce backpack. I had no idea what Salesforce was. And they're like, yeah, we sell software. We sell cloud services. And they're like, you're a pretty charismatic guy. You should apply to software companies and telecom companies. And then I'm like, yeah, let me do that. And that's kind of how I fell backwards into working in tech. You get lucky. And it just so happened that I got very, very lucky to land an account executive job at a telecom company, selling into the best territory ever, where it was essentially just like taking orders, selling into the largest hospitals, home healthcare agencies, nursing homes, when there was the largest transition from physical paper to the cloud. So it was just like very, very easy sales, but very large sales. And the commissions were huge because, tech products, tech and telecom, is very, very high margin businesses. So if we would sell like a mobile device management software product, let me try to cross the street here, down here. Hey, what's up, Marcelo? You know what's funny? This type of, I would say this area between 50th and 52nd Street always buffers. But it doesn't buffer when there's a lot of people in the city, which is almost like counter, like you would think the opposite, right? You would think when a ton of tourists are in the city, at Radio City Music Hall and Rockefeller Center, you would have crazy buffering. But when there's nobody in the city, that's when we have the buffering there. It's interesting. I wonder if it has something to do with like network prioritization. Maybe it has to do with that. Like Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, like really boost the network when you have tourists in town. I think that would make sense. Here we are, Radio City. Hey, what's up, Melee? This is Bitcoin at 89,000. That's another wild thing, right? Speaking about, we're talking about getting lucky on this stream a lot. That's another thing I just happened to get lucky on. When I was in college, I would spend a lot of time on the internet, on Reddit communities, on, like online chat rooms. And I would always watch Bitcoin live streams. And there was this guy, Peter Saddington. He's like this big venture capitalist. And I would take a lot of his like free coding classes. And that's how I found out about Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like $800. So, I mean, another thing, getting lucky, just being curious. I remember being on a live stream when Bitcoin crossed 5,000 for the first time. And then yesterday, we had the largest daily US dollar move in Bitcoin history when Bitcoin was up $8,000 in one day. Crazy. Go for Hockey, is a chat room still a thing? Well, back in the day, and I'm saying back in the day, this was like 2013, 2014, there was this website called the bitcoin.pub. I don't even know if it's still in operation. You guys could just type it in on your search browser. Maybe the domain is for sale. The last time I tried to look, the domain is for sale for like $10,000. But it used to be like an operational website where, it was run by this really, really well-known software engineer, Peter Saddington. And there was like free courses on there, free data science courses, like introduction to Bitcoin courses, when, this was like $800, $1,000. So, I think it's a defunct project. Chloe says $12,000 for the domain now. Yeah, that used to be, I think there's some YouTube videos of like screen captures of what the website used to be. It was a freaking hilarious website. But, learned a lot. Learned how to run your own mining operation, learned how to, run your own node. It was pretty cool. All right, let's go check out the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. Raphael says the Mt. Gox stays. Yeah, I think people are just getting their money back now from Mt. Gox. Oh, speaking of crypto, did you guys see the breaking news from Coinbase? So Coinbase is trying to replicate the S&P 500, but with crypto. So it's going to be the Coin 50, I believe. So you can now quite literally buy an index, right? Like S&P 500, which is the 500 largest companies in the U.S. The people over at Coinbase made like the top 50 market cap, cryptocurrencies, so to speak. The Coin 50. Now, will I buy it? The answer is actually yes, and I'll tell you why. I probably won't buy a lot, but I will buy it. I was just reading an article that they came out with it. Because imagine being able to buy the first share of the S&P 500 ever. So, yeah, I'll probably buy like $10,000 worth if you can buy it. I don't even know if it's going to be like an exchange-traded product. But if they come out with the Coin 50, I'm going to buy it and just hold it forever and just see, what happens. Because, Like, can you imagine buying the first share of like a Vanguard S&P 500 ETF? Like, that's just crazy. Crazy, crazy. So, yeah, I'll go ahead and participate in that. Here we are, Rockefeller Center. Just for some perspective of how windy it is. It's crazy windy. Looking beautiful tonight, though. Matt S. says, Tom, what do you think of CRO coin? I don't know about any of the coins. And I'm being honest. I don't know about any of the altcoins. I don't even know what they are, honestly. I only have Bitcoin. Not too many people ice skating. Hey, Sai says, do you have a consolidated news feed website where you primarily get your news financial related? Well, we publish all of our research on our Substack. And I just use X. Which reminds me, this Thursday, everybody, we're going to be sending out our next edition of the Behind the Street newsletter. We're going to be talking about a lot, so if you like this, financial concepts and conversations that we have each and every night, we do send out a free investing newsletter every single Thursday. You'll get it right to your inbox right as the market closes. So you can scan the QR code, punch in your email, or you can just type !news, NEWS in the chat, and the Nightbot will drop the link to our Substack. Now look at how cool the lights are on the top of One Vanderbilt. That's such an awesome, it almost looks like a candy cane. Let me see. Let's go to Fifth Avenue, right on the corner. If you look closely, it's like a candy cane type stripe on the top of One Vanderbilt. Unfortunately, there's going to be no Saks Fifth Avenue Christmas display this year. Unfortunately. Here's St. Patrick's Cathedral. And this is a very unique view of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. Cynthia Avis, Tom, does it smell like smoke in New York City? We're getting smoke here in Staten Island. I don't notice, to be quite honest with you, the smell of smoke. Hang with Mark Mom says no Saks Fifth Avenue Christmas special. Unfortunately not. Apparently, they couldn't find any sponsors for the light display. So there will be no holiday/Christmas decorations on Fifth Avenue at Saks Fifth Avenue this year. Unfortunately. 3 deals in contract. 1 is about to go into contract, all due to quite honestly, the result of the election. I mean, people just feel more comfortable transacting in New York City now for whatever reason. So our stuff is moving. Hey, Gypsy13, thank you so much for your generous $10 donation. Cheers to you. Appreciate the support. Here's one more shot of the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree. Felix's Saks CEO was on CNBC this morning discussing the lack of the light display. Cutting expenses was a reason. Kamani, what's up, Kamani? Says Saks is going to do the holiday windows, though, just not the light display. Yeah, that's what I heard, but it's like, yeah, I mean, the windows are nice for sure, but I mean, there's nothing like that light display that they do. That's the most beautiful light display I've ever seen in my life. Professor Dario says hot coffee time. I put Watch House in my bucket list. Watch House is fantastic. I was actually there today with a good buddy of mine who works at Neuberger Berman. Watch House is a great shop. Hey, what's up, Ibrahim Azam? I see Mohammed. Always good to see you. Matt S. Tom, I'm sure you get this all the time, but what do you do for work? I am going to graduate in May in finance and trying to figure out what to do. If you type !Thomas, THOMAS in the chat, it'll drop my bio. But I spent about a decade in tech and software sales, and now I work in luxury real estate development and sales in New York City. Look at what we got going on here. But yeah, if you want to, find out a little bit about us, kind of what deals we're doing, and if you want to be a part of it, just click our bio and check us out. I wonder if they're filming something here. Look at this. This is cool. Let's see if I can go. I just want to get another shot of what they're actually doing from the other side. Maybe they're shooting some commercial. Hey, what's up, MD? Hope you're doing well. Cava reported earnings today. I didn't have enough time to check in on how they did, but apparently, according to the audience, it was another beat and raise quarter. Stock seems to be up 12% after hours. Yeah, it looks like they're filming some sort of Saturday Night Live commercial or something. Or like a promo to SNL. Anybody remember when we were walking here maybe like a few months ago and they were shooting the Saturday Night Live movie? It was like 70s theme, something like that. That was kind of cool to see that. But the second part of your question, you're not sure what to do. I mean, if you have a degree in finance, I would move to a major city. I would move to New York. I would move to San Francisco, Miami, Chicago, and I would get a job in finance. See what you like doing. I mean, do you like? Depends on what you want to do. Do you want to work in investment banking? Do you want to be in sales and trading at the investment bank? Do you want to do like M&A? Like work on big merger and acquisition deals? Do you want to go like the private equity route? I guess it just depends on what you're interested in. Do you want to work at a hedge fund? I would say if you're graduating college, just get to and if you're in finance, get to a big city, right? Because this is where all the deal makers are. This is where the big fish are. Particularly if you want to work on Wall Street, okay? Everybody is in New York. I know there's been some migration to Miami. I own property in Miami, to New York and Miami. So I would say if you're starting a career, I would come to New York City maybe spend 1 or 2 years, working as an analyst at a bank, maybe get promoted to an associate, and then, maybe move to, Miami if you kind of get tired of New York. But Connor says, well, getting those jobs really depends on what school you went to. Well, look, I think you're right. If you want to work at a big bulge bracket investment bank, generally speaking, you probably want to go to a target school, like one of the top 50 schools. But with all of these Hamas terrorist supporters at Columbia University and, all the Ivy League, you actually have a lot of big executives at major banks giving a bit of a look to, non-target schools. So anything is possible. Obviously the odds increase, right, of getting a job at a big bank if you went to a target school. But if you are very, very aggressive and you're very, very gritty, you can get a job anywhere, right? Particularly if you want to work in the investment business as like a trader or an investor, because there's no barrier to entry, right? You should be doing the job before you get the job and before you apply to the job. But if you want to be an analyst, like an equity research analyst or something, there's nothing stopping you from initiating coverage on stocks right now. You should be building your, DCF models. You should be trading your own account, building your own portfolio. Even if you lose money, if you have a well-documented post-analysis of your actions in your portfolio, if you can show hiring managers that you made real decisions with real money, even though those decisions led to you losing money, you have an upper hand, right? Particularly in the investment business, hedge fund business, finance, you name it, it's all about being aggressive, okay, and doing things before people tell you to do it, okay? You're not a child, so, this is 2024. There's unlimited resources at our disposal, so go out and do it. Build a portfolio of work. That's what I would say. So build a massive portfolio of work. You could create a Substack, if you're more of if you want to get a job as like a software engineer or something, maybe, publish stuff on online of things you've built. I would say just get to work and then apply for internships, apply for jobs, and show them what you've done. Not just saying, hey, I took this course in college and I got an A, I think you should hire me. You should say, hey, I took this course in college, I got an A, this is what I learned from it, and this is what I built on my own, right? I built this algorithm that predicted, implied volatility, 3 days before earnings on this specific sector. This was the P&L for this month, right? This is what I learned from it. This is how I could improve the code, right? Something like that. So just get started, be creative, be very aggressive, and be absolutely ruthless. And I think you'll do really good. I think you'll do really, really well. Speaking of Wall Street, this is the old Lehman Brothers, which is now Barclays. Yeah, that's true. Connor says, I don't think that is a prime target school for banking and finance, but it depends on what you want to work for a place like Goldman or a smaller firm. Definitely look at internships. Yeah, they usually have like rotational programs, right? So like you can be like a summer investment banking summer analyst at Goldman, and then they'll probably put you on a rotation You work in this department, maybe you work in S&T, maybe you work in M&A. Now, I'll give you a little extra bonus tip, and then I got to go back to the office. You should create an X account, and you should network with CEOs of Wall Street investment banks on X. You should network with major portfolio managers on the X platform and direct message them your research. They will get back to you. I promise you that. I work with some big fund managers that I've met through Twitter. Seriously. Dan Tapiaro, Jim Ropel. Dan Tapiaro got his start on Wall Street working under Stan Druckenmiller. Right? Stan Druckenmiller, one of the greatest traders of all time, started under George Soros. Right? I connected with Dan Tapiaro because I was really, really interested in cryptocurrencies in college, and I would send him all, this, on-chain, research and Bitcoin research and everything. They will connect with you, right? Trust me. Especially if you're younger. If you have youth on your side, people are more willing to help you out, right? Not saying that as you get older, people won't help you out, but if you have a very aggressive 19, 20-year-old kid that can be aggressive, show work, doing things themselves, you're gonna do really well. Trust me, you're gonna do really, really well. Cold outreach is huge. DMing people on Twitter, sending people LinkedIn messages, right? But just don't message people and say, hey, do you have a minute to get a coffee? I just want to chat with you, right? Add value. Say, hey, I hear you. Or I see on your profile that you're a quant at 2 Sigma. Well, here's an algorithm that I made. What do you think of the code? Or something, right? People will get back to you. Trust me, trust me, trust me. So start to build, and I know I've said this before earlier, so not to sound like I'm repeating myself, but start to build your portfolio of work. Whatever you're interested in, whatever you like to do. Maybe you're interested in the finance business, but specifically oil and gas. You should be researching every single thing about the oil and gas sector, every single thing about M&A news, and maybe start your own blog on it, right? Maybe, act as an analyst and say, hey, I think ExxonMobil should acquire this company, here's why. And this is the valuation I think they should acquire it for. And people will take notice. Trust me, people will take notice. Wow, Connor says, I've heard of many instances where a student reaches out to an alum on LinkedIn and lands an interview at a top bank. That's huge. You see, it's all about just putting your name in the ring. That's a really good point. To Connor's point, you send a message on LinkedIn, the next thing you know, you make a connection, and you have an interview. That's huge. That's awesome. All right, I think I'm gonna pull over to the side and grab a coffee here.